dingo ears. Look at your ears. She is too cute. I'll show you Sully later in the video. He's finally trying to get comfortable and sleep, and I want him to sleep while I'm trying to record this. Anyway, welcome back, guys. If this is your first time here, my name's Alex, and today we are going to talk about collars and leashes. So the first thing I want to say before I get into all this is I am not going to judge you for what you choose to use on your dog. I see a lot of hatred from people in cow dog groups. If a cow dog's wearing a chain or using a muzzle on its face, or you know, not using the correct harness, or that crap drives me crazy. And the one thing I can say is, as many dogs as I've already had in my life, and as many dogs as I've trained or have watched my friends train, not every restraint or collar, whatever term you want to use, works for every dog. Yes, in general, most of them seem to work fairly well on most dogs, but there's always exceptions. And I wish people would stop judging and throwing hatred to other owners, because you don't know what that dog's going through. You don't know if it's in training for a certain thing. You don't know if it needs it for a certain reason. I know I saw a lady get ripped a new one in a group over a muzzle, and the reason she was muzzle training is just to muzzle train. It wasn't because the dog was aggressive or vicious. And grant you, muzzles aren't really what we're covering today, but it's just an example. It's their dog, and as long as it's not causing physical harm to the dog, and it's fine. But anyway, that's all I'm gonna say on that. So yeah, ooh, see, Sully agrees with me. So when you're bringing home a cattle dog, whether it's a little puppy or, you know, a bigger version, one thing I've noticed with cattle dogs is they all tend to be pullers at first, except this girl back here. This one, she never really pulled. I don't know, she's also like the laziest cattle dog I've ever met in my life. But so when I first got Silver, how I trained her was with just a normal collar. And years later, I got crap for it from people in person, not online, about training her with and walking her with just a normal collar. If your dog is trained and doesn't pull, there's nothing wrong with having a normal collar on it. Now, when you're training your dog, puppy or not, but especially puppy, if you are going to go the collar method, get a collar that has, is that focused? Get a collar with a buckle. If you can get a leather collar with a buckle, that's even better. But these collars with these, you know, safety clippy things, don't use these for training. Like I'm telling, and I've never had this happen with the girls yet. I had it happen with my boys when I had them. They would, because it's a safety thing, if they pull, it's supposed to be able to break away. And the boys did pull hard enough during training to where it popped off. Another thing I don't like about these type collars is just a slight tug from a dog will actually loosen it, and then you're getting too much space and you're losing control over the dog. What I mean by, Clea, can I borrow you? Clea, can I borrow you? So on her collar, can you see back here? Her collar, she's like, I want to sleep, Mom, leave me alone. But her collar is way too loose. Like, I can fit 4 fingers. I can probably fit my whole hand practically through her collar, and you don't want that when you're training your dog. So the rule is you should be able to get 2 fingers under the collar next to their neck. Now, I've actually seen dogs that where that method, they still can pop these things off their head, and the dog I'm referring to is my Kage. We actually had it to the point so tight around his neck where we just had 1 finger through his collar, and that dog still managed to slip it off his head during training and start taking off. I miss him. So yes, if you're gonna go, like, I guess it's now considered the old school method, whatever, of just using a collar and leash for your dog, definitely make sure it's a buckle collar that is not easily able to flop over their head. The second thing I would recommend for people with cattle dogs, a harness. There are a ton of variety of harnesses out there. You know, there's ones that just have padded fronts, there's ones that are more like, you know, backpack type ones, and then there's like, you know, which way is this going? I don't know, I get confused sometimes looking at these things. But there are a ton of different options for harnesses. Some trainers I know will say that the harnesses don't give the handler enough control. And depending on the dog, I can completely agree with that. But I know many people are freaked out about, you know, the dog's trachea getting busted or their eyes bulging out of their head, or, you know, all weird stuff I've never seen during dog training, but yet I hear people say all the time, which it can happen. I'm sure a dog could pull on any type of restraint around its neck to the point where it damages it, so that's why they choose harnesses. But I can say, out of all the cattle dogs I have had, there's been a few here, the only one that ever had any positive use for the harness was Gypsy. I had such trouble getting her to stop pulling, and for some reason a harness on her, just one little tug like that she did when the harness was on her when we first started walking, she was like, oh, this is what Mom meant. Like, that clicked in her head. The harness didn't work for Clea. She doesn't like things wrapped around her. She actually put herself into a ball like anytime the harness was on. I'm still trying to work with her on it because I do like to hike, and I want a better harness during hiking because she likes to try to jump off cliffs and go after water. So I want to make sure I have something that really can control her on that. In case she would jump off a cliff, I could pull her back up without it snapping on me, but that's another story. Even when Silver went blind, like, people were always telling me, oh, get her a harness, it's gonna help her navigate better. That girl hated it, like, absolutely hated it. Like, she ninja'd her way out of it, like, every time we tried with her. Like, she had already developed her own system of listening to the way the tags were on her leash to know to follow next to me, like she could hear it with her left ear. It's really hard for me to say that those are the two best options, but if I was going to recommend the best way to train your cattle dog, it would be those two options, you know, buckle, collar, or a harness. That's for like the mass majority of people. Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about it. So there's huge controversy over these. These are what people call choke chains. Now obviously if you're walking your dog like this and it's hanging like that and stuff, obviously that's not good. People who don't have training with these probably shouldn't be using them. I have used them because Leashe, that dog, we went through every type of collar, every type of training with him, and nothing stuck in his head. He broke through multiple collars. We even tried the gentle leader for a while on him, which I know a lot of people love. Yes, it leads them and it does correct them pretty well, but the problem I had with the gentle leader is he still was pulling, and I could see like indents on his face, and eventually he started slamming his head into the concrete to get it off his head, and he ended up blooding up his face and everything, so the gentle leader was out at that point. But for some reason with Leashe, this wasn't Leashe's chain, his is still packed away, but when I put that chain on him, that stopped him. Like, it was like, okay, I don't pull no more. I still worked with him on regular just collar training, but I kept him on a chain because, you know, if I would miss one of his signals, if we met somebody he didn't like, at least I had that protection there, you know. But most of the time when we walked him, it looked like this, like on him. Because he really was a good boy. But my point is that it is an option. If, you know, I know people say these are what kill dogs. I had the lady up the street yell at me about it too when I was training the girls. They're a training collar. This isn't something that you permanently need unless the dog permanently needs it for whatever reason. My girls used a training chain for, oh gosh, what was it? Maybe 8 months or so. And then I started switching back and forth between their like regular collars and this, depending on if I saw who needed more training or whatever. But they did really good. My girls are so good. You know, if you do decide to use a training chain, because I prefer calling it that than a choke collar, you know, as soon as they do have like a tug thing, I stop. I don't you don't pull them. Like, I don't know why people think you have to pull them with it. But it is an option. Now, one thing I bought for Sully was this little contraption thing I found. So it's like a half collar and half chain, because he is a puppy, and puppies are little wiggle worms and can get out of anything, and I'm scared to death that I'm gonna lose him from like a collar breaking or something. So now I'm not gonna try this yet on him because this chain is way heavier than I thought it would be. And I'm not putting that on my baby puppy because if that feels heavy into my fingers, I can imagine what that would feel like on a little baby puppy. So he's using the girl's baby chain. One more thing I want to say about a collar before I go on to leashes. Yes, I know this is going to piss people off just looking at it. So I know why people hate pinch collars. I know why people have a hatred towards them, because when you look at hoarder situations, or if you look at, you know, abusive situations, you see these dogs with pinched and choke chains, and it's heartbreaking. So I get why there's a hatred towards it. They are misused all the time, a lot. But that being said, I understand why some people use them. I had a hatred towards them years ago too. Kage wouldn't stop pulling for like anything, like any training we did. So I actually went to a trainer, and she actually recommended this, and I was like, oh, I don't want to. Well, one thing There are these little rubber nubs on them now. Me and my husband actually did test them out on ourselves before we tried it. But I've only used this type of chain once. It was literally for a week with Kage. It stopped his pulling automatically, but I had a trainer show me how to use it. Please don't get one of these and start yanking and pulling on your dog. Go to a trainer. See if you can do other methods to make your dog stop pulling before you go this route. But I've seriously only used it once for 7 days, my entire dog training existence. Is that what I should say? Existence? My dog training days, whatever. When you are training your dog, I don't care what kind of leash you get, like whatever color thing, whatever. Make sure it is about 4 to 6 feet long. Don't go any longer than that when you are training your dog, because you're giving your dog too much free rein. And the reason you want like a 4 to 6 foot leash is so while you have this up, you can easily like wrap it up while you're walking in case you need to hold the dog in a certain position or whatever. You have more control. You know, when I first start training my dogs how to walk on a leash, I try not to let them go like, you know, all the way away from me. When you have a shorter leash, you can pull it up quick and keep them near you, you know, so they're not running off like the crazy little puppies they are. I adore this leash. So it is reflective, and it's got a little cushioning on here, so that's nice for me, and even nice if I want to do that. So, and it's still short enough to where if I needed to wind it up quickly while I'm walking them, like I love this leash. I want more rope leashes like this. So when you actually have your dog trained to walk properly on a leash, obviously you can get longer leashes. Like they've got like, you know, 7 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot. Heck, they go up to like 35. Those are usually the recall leashes. You can always get a longer leash later. Like you have to make sure the dog is trained. Now, retractable leashes. The controversy I see over retractable leashes just blows me away. So look, here's what I got to say about it. So the old school retractable leashes where it was like a thin line, which I don't even like, it was like a thin string that came out of it. I hated those. Those I can agree with. Don't use those because they wrap around, they hurt you, you get like a razor burn type thing. It's all bad. I love these type where there's a ribbon because ribbons don't hurt as bad. I don't recommend retractables for everybody, but if you got mad dog walking skills, and not to toot my own horn, but I kind of do, I don't see nothing wrong with using a retractable leash. I actually use the retractables when I take my girls for a walk because they get to enjoy more that way, and they're always walking at my pace. You know, people say you can't tell that the dog's walking at your pace with a retractable leash. I'm like, well, that's not true, because if I can swing my arms and there's plenty of slack still left in here, I know they're walking at the pace I want them to. But I don't recommend them for everybody. You know, when I go hiking, they can get up certain things we have to climb way quicker than I can, and it's a lot easier when I have this. My hiking friends, if you recommend rope leash that's really long that they can get up there before I do, let me know. Also with the retractable leashes, I teach my pups recall, because some of the recall leashes that I've got before, or that, you know, I've borrowed from people to use, they've actually snapped on me, like, because they're so thin. But there's many different reasons for using different leashes. Like I even have another leash downstairs that's rope-like, like this, but it's kind of like that. So when you pull, it's kind of like what they use at the vet office, or what you've seen me use during my grooming video. It's a lead type rope where it tightens like that. And that leash was great because when Kage had dementia, we couldn't walk him on his regular collar anymore. We needed something more controllable for him, and a harness wasn't good because it freaked him out. So we used the rope type leash, which I see plenty of people use those kind of rope slip knot kind of, well, it's not slip knot, you know what I mean. There's many types of options out there, and you are going to know where your dog is at when it comes to pulling and training. I literally use all different types of leashes for different situations. Like my girls, when we go to the vet, they're on this. They do not get their retractable at the vet. There's too many cars there. There's a really busy road. It's like, what if? You know, I always think of the what if situations. And you know, when they're this young, as Sully's age, I know people get upset seeing a chain on a puppy so young, but what if he bolts? What if he goes into the street? Or what if he goes chasing after an animal in the woods and I never see him again? At least I know I have something that's going to stop him. And this really, as soon as that tug happens, they really do stop. especially if you stop and try to calm them down too and talk with them. And I could probably talk about this subject for hours because I've talked to a lot of dog trainers over the years. I worked with them, and I agree with a lot of the ones that say what I've said in this video, that some dogs need something different. I really feel like sometimes the dog training industry is just as trendy as the pet food industry, because I remember back when Silver, there was no talk about gentle leaders, there was no talk about harnesses, and now it's the thing to do. And just remember, if one thing isn't working, like if you've tried for like a few weeks, like just using a collar, or even if you've tried a few weeks with a harness and it's just not clicking in your dog's head, try something different. And also, when you're training your dog to walk on a leash and a collar, do it in an area that doesn't have too many distractions. For instance, your backyard. Like, literally go in the backyard with your dog and start training there. So then when you do start taking your dog out into the world, then you can worry about those distractions, but at least you might have some good base of where that dog is already focused on you and knows to listen to you. But anyway, guys, that is it for today's video. I have said my piece on the internet again, and if you have been watching this whole time, here is your reward. Oh, sleepy puppy. Did I wake you? Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Look what I did. I'm a bad mommy. I moved him. He was so comfortable. You're such a baby. I'm like the luckiest mom in the world. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.